What is shockingly legal? It's legal for congressmen to commit insider trading. Even after 60 Minutes called them out on it and people were outraged years ago. Saying $2,500 cash back on truck commercials, and then in the small print directly below the statement, no cash will be given to a consumer. Another thing I never understood is how in some commercials, usually car commercials, it's legal to flash 1,000 plus words of terms and conditions on the screen for like a quarter second. 90% of the time the font is so small and blurry I wouldn't even be able to read it on my 55 inches HD TV, even when paused, yet it's somehow considered valid. A doctor telling you that you need a test treatment done. Then insurance refuses to pay for it and you getting charged the full price. The only person in that situation that doesn't know enough to make an informed decision is the one that gets fricked. Even better, assume your doctor is in network so services are covered, but he chooses to send some blood samples to an outside lab. He does not need to ask you first. That lab may be out of network. Now you're on the hook for the full price of the lab work without you ever getting any option to even step in and say no. Some of the methods used by the paparazzi. During the Leveson inquiry I was shocked at what the press would do to celebrities, or even parents of victims. The inquiry was set up after revelations about hacking the voicemail of celebrities, war widows and even a murdered teenager. But listening to the testimony of Kate and Jerry McCann, parents of Madeleine McCann, really shocked me. Photographers and the media would stalk her every day, often with her kids. One thing they would do is hide behind a wall and jump out at her to surprise her, then use the resulting picture under the headline as Kate McCann at breaking point or something like that. Oh, freaking course she is. She's lost her firstborn daughter and she's being stalked by the press all hours of the freaking day. The press would frighten her children, both nursery age, causing them distress. These are methods used on celebrities, suspects, and other people of great interest to legalize harassment and stalking that, if done by anyone else, they'd be arrested. And what's worse, in America at least it's legal for the paparazzi to use a drone to spy on you in your own home. I freaking hate the paparazzi. For them to use press freedom to defend getting pictures of some celebrity leaving the doctor's office just isn't right. Why the frick can't they use those aggressive skills of people who actually matter like politicians? In America at least it's legal for the paparazzi to use a drone to spy on you in your own home. Imagine if someone shot a paparazzi drone out of the sky on their property, skeet shooting style. I'm sitting on my deck, drinking some whiskey. I hear a low buzzing sound. I look up, and there's a drone. I try to throw a can of Lone Star, but it's slightly out of range. I go into the house and it hovers, waiting. I come out with a shotgun and blast it out of the sky. Maybe the cops come and arrest me, or maybe the owner just sues me for the cost of their drone. Either way, it might be one of the few times the NRA and the ACLU would join forces to give legal services to a defendant. In 32 states it is legal to have sex with a 16-year-old, but illegal to have naked pictures of the 16-year-old that you had sex with. How airlines can deliberately overbook a flight, basically like selling things they don't even have. Check the contract of carriage and this can work for you. I had a flight, they were offering $200 if you took a later flight. I said no. They bumped me and 11 others anyways, and gave $250 vouchers. I asked for it in cash, because I told them I'd probably never fly with them again. They told me they couldn't. Then I did some googling, and found their contract of carriage that said they could. It depended on how delayed I was, and I was in the 8+ hours delayed window, so I ended up getting 600% of the price of that leg of my flight in a check. I got a check for $1,216 for a flight I paid $460 on. It sucked that I missed my flight, sucked a little less because I got my trip paid for. Not legal anymore, but one time in Iceland, due to Ottoman slave trade raids, it was legal to kill anyone from Turkey. They changed it, but it was legal until the 1970s. Also within the ancient city boundary of York in England, you can legally kill a Scotsman if he has a bow and arrow on his person. This one is still legal as far as I know. Ewan, hold this bow and arrow for a second. Puppy mills. Yes, absolutely. This and dog fighting are absolutely despicable. I own a couple corgis and I remember one day I was just cruising through corgi videos on YouTube and I found one of a female corgi that had been rescued from a mill. They were filming her trying to walk and she just couldn't do it because she'd never been out of the tiny breeding crate. Ugh. Even thinking about it now makes me tear up. There are a lot of puppy mill videos available on YouTube, but I'd suggest avoiding them if you don't want to ruin your Christmas. There is something about a dog struggling to walk or just functionally shutting down because it can't handle any interaction that drives me to tears almost immediately. Dogs are intelligent creatures that pretty much exist to get and give love to everyone around them. The fact that certain people can actually break that spirit by being so abusive to them, I just don't even understand. This is a business built by keeping dogs in tiny crates standing or laying in their own poop while they're forced, repeatedly, to have puppies. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of puppy mills are operated out of Lancaster County by the Amish. Obviously that's not the whole of the problem, but it's just disturbing. Buying a puppy from a pet store that doesn't verify where it got the pups. Some stores only sell adopt-out pups from local shelters. Props to them is pretty much a guarantee that it came from a puppy mill. Obviously the problem is cyclical. Puppies that don't sell at a store are either used for breeding, killed, or dumped at a shelter. They are also notoriously riddled with health problems. The only way to stop it is to cut the problem off at its source while also spreading awareness about where dogs in pet stores come from and what the results tend to be. There are millions of dogs in shelters right now that will likely be euthanized by the end of the year due to lack of space. I'm not saying everyone should adopt from a shelter because I fully support responsible breeders, but I'm just saying that there's already an issue in this country without puppy mills continually adding fuel to the fire in the worst possible way. Puppy mills are businesses that traffic in suffering from start to painful finish, and they need to be dealt with more aggressively. According to the FBI's definition of rape, a woman cannot rape a man by forcing his penis into her vagina. She must forcibly penetrate his anus with her fingers, tongue, or an object. Holy crap, that needs to change. Texas. Owning a big cat. My neighbor's cousin had a tiger on his ranch. There are dogs and house cats. These make great pets. There are snakes and birds. Those can be great pets. Rabbits, gerbils, ferrets. These are the kind of pets that can be tamed and like people. Lions and tigers may start out as babies, but they will grow into something that can easily kill a grown man. They need fresh meat constantly, in bulk. That's expensive. There's a reason some animals are in zoos. If you're considering moving to Texas to try and rear your own big cat, please don't. Zookeepers work for years before they're allowed to go near such dangerous animals, and that should apply to everyone. They are wild animals, not house pets. If you want a massive cuddle buddy, you won't get one. Things really are bigger in Texas, hey, even the cats. Stealing from your kids. I'm 17 and bought a TV. My dad stole it and is planning on selling it. Nothing I can do. Bruh, I would totally steal that back. So wrong. The United States will accept kids who aren't even old enough to buy beer into the military to be shipped overseas and killed. Datura. It makes you hallucinate for days and have absolutely no control over yourself. You are blind for days afterwards. Very high chance of dying from poisoning since it's a nightshade plant, or killing yourself. Very high chance of dying from poisoning since it's a nightshade plant. Till tomatoes will kill you. Tannerite. It's a lethal, powerful binary explosive that explodes when you shoot it, and can be bought in relatively large quantities without much hassle. I actually don't have a problem with this. In fact, I find it kind of cool that you can legally buy a high explosive and detonate it. However, I find it very odd that it is legal to buy in such large quantities because of the components of the explosive. Generally, it is sold in the form of a box of ammonium nitrate and a box of aluminum powder. When they are by themselves, they are harmless, but when mixed together and hit by a high velocity round, they explode. One of the materials used in the explosive, ammonium nitrate, is very hard to buy on its own. This is due in large part to the Oklahoma City bombings, which killed over 160 people, and had ammonium nitrate as a key ingredient in the bombs. Ammonium nitrate used to be very easy to buy because it was often sold in large bags of fertilizer, but after the OKCB, you cannot buy more than a pound or two by itself without getting into trouble. But when you buy with aluminum powder, it is sold as tannerite and you can buy hundreds of pounds of it. Yep, that's right. Ammonium nitrate has been effectively outlawed in quantities of over a few pounds because of its ability to be used as an explosive. However, if you buy it with something that can turn it into an explosive, aluminum powder, you can buy as much as you want of it. Dude, you can buy 40 pounds bags at Home Depot. It's just been slightly reformulated to make it less suitable for ANFO bombs, and they added tagans. Everything is legal in space, at least as far as the Canadian Space Agency is concerned. Nope. Section 7.2.3 of Canada's Criminal Code covers spacecraft and crimes committed during or in relation to spaceflight. I come from a land down under and my superannuation was eaten up by fees. I stopped working when I got impregnated and 2 years later we moved to NZ. Had I known that was a thing I probably would have topped it up from time to time, but there goes that dosh. Was over 10 grand I reckon. Totally legal. The way campaign financing works, of how essentially you get meaningful face time with your representative only if you can promise a substantial contribution towards their next campaign, which if they're in Congress, is any second now. At least senators have a while between elections and may actually help the little fella out here and there. Members of parliament being able to pick their own investigators to investigate the very same members of parliament for historic child freaking and setting up child sharing rings. Freaking disgraceful. It's legal, in New York City at least, for restaurants to pay their own credit card fees out of the tips of their waiters. Every time I finish a shift, a certain amount of whatever I was tipped is deducted based on how many credit cards I swiped. Just doesn't seem fair that I should have to pay for it. In the states of both Michigan and Texas, the blind are legally allowed to hunt. In Michigan, they're allowed to hunt without the aid of a sighted companion. Owning a tank. There's a lot of regulations you need to adhere to, but it's still shockingly legal. Can't have shells though. My grandfather actually owns a tank. He had two but scrapped one. The other is in a museum. AT&T's unlimited data. Unlimited up until 5 GB, then we will throttle your speed until it's barely usable. In the US, fricking the crap out of an 18-year-old. Shockingly legal considering you can't share a beer with them afterwards. In the UK you can frick the crap out of a 16-year-old and buy them a beer afterwards. They just can't buy it for themselves. There are a number of countries where simple possession of child pornography is actually legal. Production and distribution are illegal pretty much worldwide. However, you would have to think about the ramifications. If someone on Reddit linked a child P and you clicked on it, you would have to download that image on your computer in order to see that it is actually child P and you would technically be in possession of the material. Common sense dictates this scenario shouldn't be considered a crime. The new ultra bright white headlights in nice cars. Sure, the driver might be able to see a little better, but they are blinding every single other car on the road coming towards them. I guarantee multiple accidents and fatalities have already been caused by these headlights blinding other drivers. In the US, HID conversions are almost always illegal. Stock HID lights are legal, but they are designed to only shine down, so they aren't blinding. When I was younger and lived in the States, I used to date a dancer, wink wink. We were what, 19 and 18? Anyway, it was legal for her to dance in that place, but it was illegal for me to go watch. It would have also been illegal for her to go watch when she was off, because they served alcohol. Not vaccinating your child for bulls reasons. Frick your religion or beliefs. I don't want my kid who can't have vaccinations to die because there's no herd immunity anymore. Driving. In the beginning, cars were so slow that it sort of seemed like an okay idea to just let anyone who had access to one pilot it. Now they are death machines that people drive 80+ miles an hour, sometimes drunk, stoned, exhausted, distracted, etc. The driver's license exam is a joke, so essentially anyone can do this. It's terrifying when you stop and think about it. Being any agent going to just about any hardware store to get a 5-gallon bucket of hydrochloric acid relatively cheap. In 7 states and US, one must believe in God in order to hold public office. Arkansas, Article 19, Section 1. Atheists disqualified from holding office or testifying as witness. No person who denies the being of a god shall hold any office in the civil departments of this state, nor be competent to testify as a witness in any court. Maryland, Article 37. That no religious test ought ever to be required as a qualification for any office of profit or trust in this state, other than a declaration of belief in the existence of God. Nor shall the legislature prescribe any other oath of office than the oath prescribed by this Constitution. Mississippi, Article 14, Section 265. No person who denies the existence of a supreme being shall hold any office in this state. Pennsylvania, Article I, Section 4. No person who acknowledges the being of a god in a future state of rewards and punishments shall, on account of his religious sentiments, be disqualified to hold any office or place of trust or profit under this Commonwealth. South Carolina, Article 17, Section 4. No person who denies the existence of a supreme being shall hold any office under this Constitution. Tennessee, Article 9, Section 2. PDF. No person who denies the being of God, or a future state of rewards and punishments, shall hold any office in the civil department of this state. Texas, Article 1, Section 4. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office, or public trust, in this state, nor shall anyone be excluded from holding office on account of his religious sentiments, provided he acknowledge the existence of a supreme being. The Pennsylvania one actually seems to say that believing in God won't disqualify you, with no particular implication towards atheists. If you're an American, you're basically the only person in the world paying taxes based on your citizenship and not on where you live work most of the year. Remember that compared to European countries, we don't even get that much for our taxes. Yet someone from the UK with their NIP can go work abroad, and if they're gone most of the year, the Crown doesn't want their income, unless it's somehow specifically British derived. For example, interest on a UK-based account. Meanwhile, an American living abroad, who gets crap for his taxes back home, is likely to be unable to so much as open a bank account because the IRS demands that anyone doing business with Americans has to basically become an unpaid IRS enforcer. If you try to renounce, you'll have to pay an exit fee, and then be on the hook for federal taxes for 5 years. It's explicitly framed as making sure you're not renouncing to get out of your taxes, as though the government owns you. Even then, some taxes they'll say you're on the hook for life, and they'll likely bar you from ever re-entering the country. Amongst the various pretty outrageous things the IRS has done to go after tax cheats is to go after Canadians who, say, have American citizenship because their mom happened to give birth while in the US, but who have never been back after departing as an infant. Why would these people expect to have to file tax returns in a country they've never been in except as a newborn infant, when we're literally the only country to pull this crap? Professional clown Boris Johnson recently spoke out about this. He hasn't lived in the US since he was 5, but they demand hundreds of thousands from him. The crap you can get away with digital media and personal information. Here are a few examples of things that are completely legal and are being done. ICE stripping the encryption from users' emails, and in general monitoring them and tampering with the data being transferred. Storing people's personal information, including sensitive information such as credit card and home address info, unsafely, and failing to inform people immediately when such information is compromised. Devices, services, software imposing artificial limitations solely so that they can charge more to remove them, sell refills. For example, coffee makers that reject non-genuine cups, litter boxes, and Lord knows how many printers that reject cartridges that have been refilled, and or don't even really need the cartridges, but refuse to work without them. Windows driver signing to protect the system from malware, really just to prevent you breaking DRM. Internet data caps, which the ISPs have confessed have nothing to do with network load and are solely a profit grab. In a similar vein, Devices which refuse to work if a certain feature is unavailable, for no good reason. This one is more crappy design than obvious profiteering, but still. Cell phones and tablets with locked bootloaders. Devices, especially those that handle personal information, with backdoors and spyware built in, even going so far as to literally watch and listen to you at all times and send the recordings to some remote system, and in general sending back information that's none of their business. Electronic voting systems running top secret closed source software. Not like elections need to be auditable or anything. Machines which are easily capable of killing people, such as cars. Running buggy software that isn't subject to strict regulation to ensure it's safe. More info. Devices which flat out lie to other devices asking for their capabilities and specs. Not so much a personal information DRM issue so much as a making things stupid and difficult for no good reason issue. Removing advertised functions from, or otherwise crippling, devices that have already been sold. The thousands upon thousands of websites and advertisers that collect your personal information and sell, or leak it. Cell phone contracts which don't include the phone actually working. Your phone died 2 years into a 3-year contract, too dang bad. Buy a new one. Devices, weed, every modern game console, with built-in unremovable advertising, which then gets into more privacy issues. Basically, as long as you aren't a doctor, the law lets you do whatever you dang well please with people's personal information. Sell them deliberately crippled defective products and charge extra to fix them, and make no effort to protect people's personal information, or even to ensure your product won't glitch out and kill someone on the highway, as long as a computer is involved. Police can legally lie to you, threaten you with arrest for something that wasn't illegal or something you didn't do, misrepresent the law to you, saying what you did was illegal, all in order to gain your compliance. It is up to you to know the laws to the ability of a seasoned lawyer and be able to stand up for your rights, and cops make it as hard as possible by being as shady as they can in their wording. Yet the police are now legally allowed to detain and search you or your property for something they merely thought was illegal. The police don't have to be perfect, yet you do. Civil forfeiture. Basically, cops can take your stuff if they believe it is involved with a crime. They do not need any evidence either. It's pretty much legalized robbery by law enforcement. I had something similar. I went out of town for a weekend and had my house broken into. Stole my laptop and guitar and other little things. Gave the cops the serial numbers. Wasn't expecting much, but why not? Then they asked about the 3 long guns I had in my closet, and loaded and locked. And I said they hadn't been touched and they were locked. Well, the police had a powwow and said they had to confiscate them as evidence because a similar weapon was described in a recent robbery, a once-a-week thing in the area, and took them as evidence in a completely unrelated crime. The people that I went out of town with me were right there telling them I was hundreds of miles away at the time of the robbery, but they weren't having it. I guess their thinking was that the robbers broke in my house, stole my crap, broke the gun locks, used the guns in another robbery, bought 3 gun locks, broke back in, and returned them before I got home. WTF. So they say when the case is closed I can have them back. When the case was closed they had lost them. I showed them my paperwork and they said they'd sort it out and call me. Never did. Visited the precinct a few times. They couldn't find them. They just took $1,500 of guns from me because I asked for help after a robbery. Never again. It's just like in that segment. Who stole the guns from you? Well, he looked exactly like you actually. I sincerely hope they're enjoying their nice new rifles and shotgun. The douchebags. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.